to alarm you, but fall's anime lineup might, in fact, be too cracked. I'm sure you're aware of at least some of the crazy huge shows coming back right now, from Spy Family to Tokyo Revengers to Dr. Stone to Attack on Titan to Seven Deadly Sins? It's not over? It's never over. It's not over. It's never over. It's not over. It's never. Not to mention all the great stuff that's still going, like Jujutsu Kaisen and Dark Gathering. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. All told, there are 24 sequels and spin-offs hitting this season, on top of 39 brand new anime. And that's not even counting all the good shit coming out of Netflix between now and Christmas. No matter how tapped in you think you are to the current state of anime, you are definitely missing out on something amazing right now. But don't worry, I've watched every show of the season, so you don't have to. And I've got a list of the 10 that are most worth your precious time. Plus, another like 15 that I threw in the honorable mentions at the end, because I couldn't fit them on there, so maybe worry, like, just a little. These are the ones to watch for fall 2023, brought to you by GamerSupps. And once again, I mean that in the very literal sense that I could not physically have stayed awake and made this video without all of these. Also, I got editor Trey hooked on the stuff when they came to visit and binge watch Berserk this summer, so now it's twice as true this season, and for very good reason. The energy boost provided by GamerSupps is really clean, with no jitters or crash, and it simply tastes way better than any other energy drink either of us has tried. This new mix I just discovered so good, I'd drink it even without the energy boost. Or the anime booty on the cup, for that matter. Speaking of, they got this new Big Titty Princess cup out right now to celebrate their new line of gamer teas, which, like all their formulas, are also available in caffeine-free flavors, so you can enjoy their great taste and natural herbal benefits right up to bedtime. And naturally, those teas are also eligible for a 10% discount with code BASEMENT at the link below, like everything else on their store, including this non-editor tray for other herbal benefits. Now it's time to get into the list, and if you watch our second channel, Basement Life, then you already know what my first pick of the season's gonna be. Frieren: Beyond Journey's End is one of the greatest fantasy novels, graphic or otherwise, that I have ever had the pleasure of reading. And when I say fantasy, I mean it in the truly classic, swords and sorcery, Dungeons and Dragon Questy, Tolkien-esque-ish sense of the word, with heroes and demons and elves and dwarves and maybe some cat girls if we're lucky, and absolutely no isekai shenanigans in sight. Which is a tricky fictional formula to make feel fresh, maybe even the trickiest, but Frieren pulls it off with a clever inversion of your typical tropey plotline. We're not following a hero's party on their epic quest to beat the Demon King here, but rather the party's millennia-old elven mage, Frieren, long after the aftermath of that victory, picking up when the hero dies some 50 years later, and she finally realizes, just too late, how short and precious human lives really are.
人間の寿命は短いって分かっていたのに、なんでもっと知ろうと思わなかったんだろう。
So she sets out on a new, much cozier quest of self-discovery and people-watching. Also demon slaying, and statue cleaning, and beach reclaiming, and really whatever work the locals might need from a traveling wizard and eventually her apprentice in exchange for food, lodging, a bit of traveling money, and if she's really lucky, some esoteric old folk spells of no particular use to anyone.
How about this one? You people like the smell of fresh cut grass? Open up the bag. Smell that? It's fresh cut grass.
Her hobby is collecting those. If you're the sort of fantasy fan who skims over the Shire Trek to get to the good bits or bemoans Tom Bombadil as filler content, this probably isn't the manga or anime for you, but for anyone who loves getting lost in worlds rich with culture and history, or exploring the lore around a crunchy, creative magic system in the company of quirky, lovable characters, Frieren is as good as that sort of thing gets. Also, as a bonus, it's gonna make you ugly cry like crazy, so Violet Evergarden type fantasy fans will ironically, be quite happy with this one too. And that's just the manga. Amazingly, though not surprisingly, coming from the director of Bocchi the Rock, the anime adaptation is every bit as beautiful in every aspect, from music to direction to, of course, the colorful, expressive animation. With only 2 shows under his belt, Keiichiro Saito has already cemented himself as one of those anime directors that I will follow to the ends of the earth. By an astounding coincidence, another one of those directors, Aoki, has his own new show out this season, an original series, no less, called Overtake. If you don't know Aoki by his name, you might know him by his work. His bold cinematic style and keen sense for tense, exciting action scenes make quite the potent combo in Fate Zero, Recreators, and It Invaded, to name a few, not to mention the haremist anime of all time, Girls Bravo. With Overtake, Aoki brings that skill for thrilling storyboards and eye for evocative camera angles to the exciting low-stakes world of Formula 4 racing. A semi-pro open-wheel racing league for both junior drivers looking to move up to F1 and wealthy hobbyists who want to tick racing the pro circuit off their bucket lists, which is honestly such a fantastic stage for sports anime drama that I'm a bit surprised we don't see more anime or dad movies about it. With a buy-in cost in the low 6 figures per year to maintain a competitive machine, F4 is almost as much a rich man's game as Formula 1, but there's just enough wiggle room there that a skilled driver with enthusiastic upper-middle-class backers could conceivably pull a cathartic upset over the bougier teams. And that's exactly the kind of biopic-worthy story that burned-out freelance photographer Koya Madoka sees unfolding after fate puts him in the tent of scrappy, underfunded underdogs Komaki Motors. Unfortunately, for as much grit and raw talent as Komaki's driver Haruka has, you can only get so far on worn-down tires before you gotta replace them, and he'll need a lot more luck and a fair bit more money if he's really gonna beat their fancy-pants boy rivals at Team Biz Soriso. Kyoya really wants to believe in that long shot, though, in part because he's forgotten how to believe in himself, so he throws his full weight and savings behind Haruka as his new sponsor, and the team gets to work doing, essentially Haikyuu with cars, which, I probably could have just said that last sentence and saved us all a lot of time, but it's not like I can rewrite this before I record it. On the subject of things I can't take back, I could hear some of you jumping down to the comments the second I mentioned Girls Bravo to tell me that the real haremist anime of all time is, in fact, the 100 Girlfriends Who Really, 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 Really Love You. And the thing about that is, I actually agree with you. Now, it's just, the anime wasn't out yet when I wrote that sentence, so... Rentaro Aijo is at once the most selfless and selfish harem protagonist to ever walk the earth. Selfless in that he possesses literally boundless patience, understanding, and generosity for those around him, from old men who've lost their contacts, to cute girls, to cuter girls, to the cutest girls, to somehow even cuter girls than that. There's a lot of girls. They were not fucking around with that title. Which brings us to how Rentaro is selfish. He will take as much love as he can get from anyone who's given it, no matter how much he has already. Although, to this point in his life, that's exactly 0. Despite having taken 100 swings at romance between the age of 8 months and middle school, Rentaro has only ever struck out. But as it turns out, that's only because the god of love was saving all his luck for the day he was destined to meet his soulmate. Also his other soulmate. But not his other soulmate, or his other soulmate, his other soulmate, or any of the other nearly 8 dozen other soulmates who are waiting to meet him because the aforementioned love god got a wee bit distracted by Castle in the Sky while filling out his paperwork. Which is, easy mistake to make. It can happen to anyone. That's 100 out of 100 film, and you gotta write the 100 somewhere. If you're sick and tired of harems too chicken shit to commit to a a real harem ending, of seeing the same fucking tsunderes and kuderes and Genki sports girls in marginally different haircuts over and over and over, of wet blanket doormat protagonists who aren't fit to lick up their waifu's spit, then 100 Girlfriends is really, 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 really the harem anime for you. If not, just wait a bit. I'm sure a new season of Rent-a-Girlfriend's gonna congeal into existence any day now. Normally when an anime is as funny as 100 Girlfriends, it's an easy frontrunner for Comedy of the Year, but with 2023 being as cracked as it was, this one's not even a shoe-in for Best of Season. Vexations of a shut-in vampire princess is just as much of a laugh riot, a wild fantasy farce that follows Tara Komori Gainsblood, prodigal fail daughter of a powerful vampire dynasty, as she's yanked out of her comfy little hikikomori hole and forced into the role of commander in the Mole Knight Imperial Army, tasked with winning glory for her empress on the battlefield at least once every 3 months if she wants to keep her job and her head. But the enemy hordes of beastmen and dwarves and what have you are far from her only concern. Vampire society's quite competitive, you see, and many of the men in Komori's command would slit her throat at the first sign of weakness in hopes of taking her job, which is unfortunate since her aversion to drinking blood has made her quite weak by vampire standards, even hikikomori vampire standards. Luckily, her faithful and dependable maid Vilhays is here to cover for her.
小鞠様が本気を出せば、ここにいる全員を5秒でぶち殺すことが可能なのです。おいこら、そのサムズアップやめろ。全然ナイスフォローじゃねえよ。
And all she asks in return is to harass, fondle, and ogle her mistress at every conceivable opportunity. All of which makes a pretty solid foundation for anime comedy, if you're into that sort of thing. But what really elevates Shut-In Vampire is its setting. An absurdist take on your typical grimdark only war type fantasy world, where powerful magic has made basically everyone immortal, and that means Komori's real job is a lot closer to being the mascot of a squad of elite pro wrestling heels than, you know, an actual military general. Which, to be fair, does explain how she landed the gig, even with her credentials. Well, that and the Empress seems to be nearly as fond of Lady Gainsblood as her maid. On a completely unrelated note, Shy is a brand new anime about a teenage superheroine and her new normal classmate whom history will remember as the best of gal pals. In Shy's world, war is all over. That's right, no one does any wars anywhere anymore because there's superheroes now all over the place, each one assigned to a different country by this space lady who went around handing out Kamen Rider transformation bracelets a couple months ago. Or, maybe I should say magical girl bracelets, since they come with these cute little alien shrimp mascot guys. Also, the only guy on the poster is Stardust, aka Davy Wonder Jones, rock star philanthropist. He's British. Shy does the whole Overwatchy G-Gundam type thing where each hero represents an iconic aspect of the culture they're from. Like the Russian one, Spirits, is a high-functioning alcoholic, and the Japanese one, Shy, has crippling anxiety born from name-searching herself too much. I mean, yeah, there is also this fucking Damien-ass demon child going around turning people into crystal monsters with these evil mood rings, and they gotta punch those sometimes. But at its heart, Shy is really a character-driven drama about grappling with imposter syndrome, survivor's guilt, and maybe a few sapphic urges.
シャイ、聞こえていますか？
見とれてしまった。
Some of which might possibly be directed at the aforementioned classmate, Iko, who has a busted knee now because Shy failed to protect her while saving like 20 other people from a potentially deadly roller coaster crash, which, I mean, honestly, bit of a silly thing to get hung up on for one episode, let alone two, but after the last couple decades of massive cinematic universe roadmaps and every superhero trying to save the world harder than the last guy, I don't know, I kind of like just watching an awkward, super strong teenager deal with emotional issues and search and rescue jobs on top of the usual supervillain crap. It's a good time. Likewise, Ron Komonohashi's Forbidden Deductions offers a very fun, very different twist on your typical detective story, while still serving up some very satisfying mysteries. Ishiki Totomaru is just a little guy, really. Way too kind and trusting to be a cop, but a cop is what he's chosen to be, and so he's been relegated to the role of precinct whipping boy by his boss mommy captain, Amamiya. But that all changes the day he meets Komonohashi Ron, a scruffy savant detective with serious emotional issues who's decked out his entire apartment like a padded cell so he can just fall on the floor and scream whenever and wherever he feels like it. Honestly, goals. The reason for all that screaming is that Ron was born to solve crimes. I mean, the instructors at the top secret Hogwarts-esque international detective school that he went to believed that once he graduated, it would mark the end of all the unsolved mysteries in the world forever. And yet, by a tragic twist of fate, those very same teachers would one day deem him unfit to hold a license and declare that if he ever detected again, they would track him down and turn him into a crime scene. However, by allowing Totomaru to take the credit for his world-class deductions, Ron becomes free to solve crimes once more, which is good because that's like the only way he can get off. Unfortunately, it's not just the emotional issues and habit of lying down next to corpses and talking to them that made the top secret global cabal of detectives question Ron's stability. He also has a bit of a bad habit of telling bad guys to unalive themselves the second he catches them.
沈め人を殺めて隠すやつ
何あれかっこいい
Bakugo fangirls? This show's got your number. Also Sherlock fangirls. Anyway, that'd be bad enough if it was just regular police misconduct, but as you might have guessed from that thing in his eyes that looks an awful lot like a Gios, Ron Komonohashi has a Gios. So when he tells someone to jump off a building, they say, how high? And then it's Toto's job as a good-hearted dingus to charge blindly into danger and say, no, don't, you're so sexy, All things considered, it's a pretty ridiculous premise for a mystery anime, even by Detective Conan standards. But the characters here are a ton of fun, and the mysteries are every bit as well constructed as the jokes. This next one's for the mecha nerds out there, and when I say that, I mean the hardcore nerds, like dudes in the Armored Core forums arguing about the pros and cons of treaded versus bipedal designs.
ほら見ろ二足歩行じゃダメじゃねえか
二足歩行のメリットは機動性と足場の環境に左右されないってところです
Now, you don't need to be one of those guys to enjoy this show. It's got a very strong cast of characters and a fun, laid-back workplace comedy vibe that I think will appeal to even the most casual of mech enjoyers. But for those connoisseurs who really love sinking their teeth into a real robot setting, the freaks like me whose favorite part of Cowboy Bebop is when they fiddle with the fiddly little spaceship controls, Bullbuster is a rare treat. And it's a rare example of my personal favorite, extremely specific mecha subgenre, real robots being used not as weapons of war, but tools of commerce and industry. In this case, serving the commercial purpose of pest control on an abandoned kaiju-infested island after the pilots fill out the necessary mech insurance forms, of course. It's the sort of setting we saw in Mamoru Oshii's 80s OVA masterpiece Patlabor, as well as Steambot Chronicles, the greatest video game ever made. Plus, wait. Is that really it? Those two plus Dygard, kind of? Well, not anymore. So if the prospect of mech-related paperwork excites you as much as it excites me, or you want to see a bunch of working-class schlubs from the near future reenacting the Alien Queen versus Power Loader fight with mutant naked mole rats every week, then those are some very compelling reasons to watch Bullbuster. And if you don't want that, we probably can't be friends. Sorry. Also, sorry if I'm apologizing too much. That's just my Canadian genetics coming through, which, I'll admit, also give me a certain amount of personal bias toward our next anime, so sorry for that too. But you know, I'd love Undead Unluck even if it weren't the only Shonen Jump manga I know of with a Vancouver mention. Let's go! Also, that patriotic enthusiasm has been dampened a little bit by the fact that Disney and Hulu forgot to make the show available in Canada on its launch day. Anyway, the undead in the title refers to our brash amnesiac hero, Andy, whose near-instant Wolverine-esque healing factor not only does what you'd expect it to do, but also enables all sorts of crazy schmovement tech based around repeatedly ejecting and rapidly regenerating his own body mass. Unfortunately, all that comes with the rather significant drawback of not being able to die forever, and Andy is very tired. So when he meets Fuko, a girl whose unluck powers inflict random, usually fatal disasters on anyone she touches, he sees a chance to finally end it all, and she sees a chance to, finally hang out with the guy who won't immediately get obliterated as soon as she kisses him. So begins one of the most heartwarming romances in Shonen Jump history, though you wouldn't know it from how handsy Andy can be early on. Honestly, if I hadn't read ahead in the manga already, I don't know if I'd be recommending this anime at all, even with the beautiful visuals and the quality anime original content that they added to the first episode. But I have read the manga, so I know that the characters and story only get better from here, like exponentially. And the world building and power system are, okay, I don't want to spoil anything, but I promise if you give this anime a shot, you are in for one of the wildest rides of your life. That said, few mangaka write rides wilder than Kengo Hanazawa, creator of the most batshit insane zombie manga ever, I Am a Hero. His latest creation, Under Ninja, imagines an alternate history world where ninja can do all the crazy ninja shit that's only possible in anime usually, which made them the single greatest threat to America during World War II, except for a handful of pro-freedom ninja defectors. Thus, in the wake of the war, the occupation began heavily regulating and monitoring Japan's ninja, putting them to work as spies and assassins domestically at first, then spreading to the Pacific theater of the Cold War, until eventually ninja mercenaries could be found on battlefields around the globe.
Nobody else can do this but ninja. Look what's on the corner of the desk. It's an origami. Thank God and your mommy you didn't see them.
Now, you may have spotted a slight flaw in that prologue clip, possibly two if the terrible 3D animation didn't distract you from the hilarious English voice acting or vice versa.
Rock and roll!
And I'll be honest, though it does feature some very slick direction and shot composition, the animation here doesn't get all that much prettier, even when it does shift to 2D. But the story, and especially comedy, of Under Ninja are so good that I think it's worth looking past all that. Our burned-out teenage temp ninja protagonist, Kuro, is a fantastic example of the sort of off-the-wall yet relatable characters who make Hanazawa's manga so memorable. The group of misfits he surrounds himself with, ninja and normies alike, seem just as delightful and fascinating from what little we've gotten to know them, and the world they all inhabit feels distinctly gritty and believable. If you yearn for anime that makes bold, creative choices and refuses to play it safe, this might just be one of your faves of the season, if not the year, despite all the obviously rough edges. Depending on your taste, you might even see some of those janky quirks as positives, at least if you're anything like the protag-kun of the new hit VR MMO anime, Shangri-La Frontier. Much like, well, pretty much everything in its weird little subgenre, Shangri-La Frontier imagines a near-future world where rapidly advancing mind-machine interfaces have made it possible to fully simulate virtual worlds. In contrast to its contemporaries, though, which generally frame this development as ushering in a new gaming golden age of highly polished full-dive experiences, Shangri-La posits that this new level of fidelity, immersion, and full-body interactivity will only make it more prohibitively expensive to polish, test, and create assets for those games, ultimately ushering in a new era of kusoge instead. That is, shit games, if you don't know your Japanese colloquialisms. A category of interactive entertainment with a surprisingly enthusiastic fan base even today. Some enjoy kusoge for the unconventional challenge of besting broken mechanics. Others for the fascinating spectacle of seeing how bad them glitches can get. And still others simply love discovering obscure games with ambitiously unconventional designs that their creators lack the skill or resources to realize. Hizutome Rakuro, hacker alias Sunraku, is one such enthusiast. The kind of guy who will play through an excruciatingly busted 40-hour escort mission just to enjoy the 30-second scripting error at the very end that lets you kick the ever-loving shit out of that obnoxious NPC. As fun as it is to roll around in trash, though, it can get tiring if that's all you do. Believe me, I'd know. So when Rakuro decides to check out the SAO-esque Kamige, or God game, Shangri-La Frontier for a change of pace, he discovers that his years spent fighting input lag and broken physics have granted him fittingly godly reflexes and agility in this much better optimized virtual world, which he plans to use to beat the game in nothing but a bird mask and underwear, just like Hidetaka Miyazaki intended. Thanks to the same studio and director who brought us Harukana Receive and Wandering Witch, he looks great doing it too. For anyone craving a gamer anime where the hero actually plays like a gamer, or just looking for some lighthearted fantasy action fun to offset all the sadness of Freerun, look no further. Well, I mean, if you want to look just a little scooch further, we do have a little bit left in the bargain bin, or a lot bit, as it were, like 15, many of which came just short of making the actual list because, did I mention this season's lineups absolutely cracked? For instance, MF Ghost, the spiritual and canonical sequel to Initial D, set in a near future where Toge street racing has become both legal and extremely popular as a sort of last hurrah for the internal combustion engine in a world of electric cars. Its racing action is every bit as solid as Overtake's, ditto for its characters, and the music might be even better, but I decided that Overtake ultimately needed the spotlight a little more as an original IP, so here it is. Likewise, I'm in Love with the Villainess is every bit as hilarious, over-the-top, and Yuri-tastic a fantasy comedy as Vampire Princess Vexations. Sometimes it's even funnier, but Vampire Princess ultimately won its spot with much nicer animation and a more interesting world. Yuri enjoyers will also want to check out Stardust Telepath this season, a cute little comedy about an awkward girl who has trouble making friends and her new classmate who claims to be an alien. My New Boss is Goofy is another fantastic comedy that just barely missed the cut for the list. This one following a young marketer as he starts work at a new company after his old boss abused him so hard he developed an ulcer. Luckily, his new boss is, like it says in the title, pretty goofy, adorably absent-minded, and generally just a really sweet guy. So from now on, the only thing that's gonna be upsetting his tummy is all the belly laughs. Also the ulcer still, those take a really long time to heal. The next anime in the bin, Migi and Dolly, is a bit more of an acquired taste, with an absolutely bizarre premise. See, this doting elderly couple thinks that they've adopted a very nice young orphan boy named Hitori, but in reality, they're the victims of an elaborate scam by a pair of twins whose names are, in the title. It's basically an inverse Parent Trap with the direction of Death Note's potato chip scene, and if that sounds like a fun time to you, I assure you, it is. Firefighter Daigo, the rescuer in orange, is a tense procedural drama about the exciting world of firefighting, and not, anime firefighting where the fires are demons and you put them out by waving your tits at them. No, this show takes a very realistic, down-to-earth, downright educational approach to its subject matter, exploring the real training and equipment that real firefighters use to fight real fires in the same way that Space Brothers explores real-life space travel. And just like that show made the 8-year-old wannabe astronaut inside me squeal, this one did that for the 4-year-old wannabe firefighter. Speaking of educational anime, anyone looking to learn the groundbreaking, medium-defining history of early 90s Japanese porn games should definitely check out 16 16-bit sensation another layer. The story of an illustrator at a crappy modern dating sim company who's sent back in time to the golden age of visual novels and given the chance to make her personal dream game a reality. On that note, there's also an esports anime out this season called Protocol Rain that, honestly, it's not very good, but we've never had a generic sports anime about pro FPS gamers before, so if you, like me, are into those two things, you might still get a kick out of it. If, like me, you're also not into Battle of the Boy Band anime, I'd encourage you to make an exception for Paradox Live, the animation. It's gorgeous to look at, the music genuinely slaps, and it feels less like a music anime than an all-around solid piece of cyberpunk fiction that just happens to be about magic rap battles. Speaking of course we've got some fantasy anime in the bin too. A few of the edgier isekai adjacent shows this season, Ragna Crimson, Kingdom of Ruin, A Returner's Magic Should Be Special, and The Berserk of Gluttony, are stuck in a sort of pre-3 episode test quantum state where they could turn out to be genuinely good, or end up in the hottest trash. Either way, if you're into the genre, I think they're worth a look. Tear Moon Empire, though, definitely isn't trash. It's a rather unique, non-isekai take on the whole villainous premise, in which a fantasy equivalent to Marie Antoinette gets sent back in time at the moment of her execution and given a second chance to avoid that date with Guillotine-kun. Although that's a lot easier said than done when she has less than 2 years to fix the entire empire's economy. Unfortunately, I can't travel through time, and it's not October 21st yet, so I can't say for sure if the Apothecary Diaries is as good as the trailer makes it look, and I wasn't able to put it on the list. But it sure does look promising, especially in its animation and art direction, so if you like historical mysteries or just shows that look really pretty, definitely check that out when it's out too. Also, if you're not aware, Netflix has a ton of great looking stuff coming up between now and the end of the year, including Science Saru's Scott Pilgrim anime, the long-awaited adaptation of Naoki Urasawa's Pluto, an Onimusha show from legendary director Takashi Miike, and a cool new gamer anime called Goodnight World that should be out by the time I post this video, which I really want to do sooner or later, and my throat is starting to hurt, so I guess I should stop giving you new anime to watch and finally wrap things up here. I'm Geoff Thew, your guide to anime's good stuff, and if you'll excuse me, I've got a horrible horror anime I've got to go roast.